something we monitored and tracked throughout the course of last week were the events surrounding the decision for Matthew Stafford and company and whether or not he was going to go elsewhere. Reportedly, he wanted to feel appreciated and respected. And so that's ultimately what he wanted from the Rams. We don't have the official details on the contract, but reportedly it was for less than what the Raiders and or the Giants were both offering. And so Matthew Stafford is now back with the LA Rams. And so now the conversation becomes, what the hell do the Raiders do at quarterback? What the hell do the Giants do at quarterback? Apparently, Aaron Rodgers is on the table for the New York Giants. There is some mutual interest there. When it comes to the Raiders, they prefer adding a veteran as opposed to anybody from the rookie class, potentially. They've got the number 6 pick in the draft. To me, Shadour Sanders, I think would make a lot of sense for the Raiders. His relationship with Brady, it's Vegas. That feels like that could be a fun watch with him and Pete Carroll and company. But nonetheless, Raiders and Giants asked out, now trying to figure out the quarterback spot moving forward.
Go ahead, Q. I'll take it. So here's what I'll say to that. And I'm going to continue to kind of like run.
Stand on it?
Well, yeah, I'm going to stand on this one. I believe looking at where, especially the New York Giants, where they're at, I just don't think they have time. I don't think Daboll has time to develop a quarterback. So if I'm going to go out and get a quarterback right now, I'm going out and I'm going to try to get the best one that's available to what my offensive scheme is, what I want to do here. And I want to be able to have that available to me day one. I don't want a development project because I just do not have the time. I don't know that Daboll, if he doesn't get off to a good start, I don't know that he makes it through the season. And so to me, I think that it's two different situations. I think with Pete Carroll, he probably doesn't want to have to develop anybody from scratch, or is thinking, I will develop somebody from scratch and leave this team in a better situation structurally than what it was when I got here. That could be Pete Carroll's approach to it, and thus getting a quarterback in the draft and developing that quarterback as they move forward. But I think it's a more dire situation in New York for the Giants and what they want to get done. And I think Stafford would have been a great get for them. And it really could have changed the trajectory of what they look like going into next season. But as of right now, they still have not done anything that would lend to saying that this is going to be a different team with different outcomes next season. And that could be very detrimental to not only the head coach, but it could be detrimental to the GM as well.
Yeah, I think what you're pointing out is the Giants and Raiders are both in completely different spots, right? The Raiders is a new it's a new coaching staff, kind of new front office. Tom Brady's now taking a much more active role. It feels almost like a new franchise in a way. I mean, maybe you compare a little bit to the Washington Commanders. But I look at this and think, for the exact point you made, the Giants are the ones that are probably in the toughest spot, and that's because Daboll's going to be on the hot seat and Shane's going to be in the hot seat if things don't go well. So, they might look more the veteran route. They might look more Rodgers as opposed to looking in the draft, even though they're in striking distance of taking, one of these guys, whether it's Cam Ward, Shadour Sanders, Jackson Dart, whoever they feel most confident in. They're not going to be able to wait on the development, wait on that guy to be able to be the guy.
Yeah. I think it definitely is one of those things where, you got to feel super kind. I heard you say Shedeur, and I guess we're going to get to some sound to him. You got to feel 100% confident if I'm one of these teams that are using that high of a draft pick. If I'm going with one of these quarterbacks, you got to be 100% confident that this is who you believe is going to come in and be a positive contributor to your team.
Yeah. Shadour Sanders on Friday was at the Combine in Indianapolis, and very confident guy. And I'll be honest with you, he sold me. Let's take a listen.
We went from Jackson State to Colorado and changed 2 programs back to back. So you don't think I could come to an NFL franchise and change the program again? It's history. We done it again. It's always going to repeat itself. If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't give me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over, and I've done it over and over and over, so it should be no question why an NFL franchise should pick me.
Gotta get to the Raiders. Get to the Raiders.
I like the confidence, and whether it's true or not, I'll say this. I believe that you have to believe the most in what you bring to the table, no matter what the critics say. And he alluded to that, too. It also was one of the sound bites. Is like, look, you know who my dad is. He's always been criticized, and people have always hated on him. So I'm okay with haters, and I'm okay with critics. But I'm a believe in what it is that I bring to the table. Win or lose, true or false, I would be willing to hang my hat on somebody who comes with that mindset versus the latter. Like, it's not about, like, some people be like, oh, just be humble and be gracious and don't say anything. What he's saying isn't being arrogant. I don't think that falls out of the realm of being humble. I just think that it's a declaration of, this is who I am. I make things happen, and if you don't see what it is that I'm doing, I'm going to tell you, and because this is a job interview. It is a job interview, so I'm going to tell you why you should give me this job over someone else. I'm not going to not say why you shouldn't give me this job. I'm going to say exactly what it is that I feel is the reasons why you should give me the job. And he's basically putting all 32 teams on notice and saying that in my heart and in my mind, I know I am more than able and capable of coming in and transforming whatever team franchise I come to play for. I like that approach. I like the way he came with it.
I mean, I like it. I think there's a difference in transforming Colorado and where they were at.
100%.
I mean, they really only could go up from as bad as they were when Deion Sanders got there, Shadour Sanders had gotten there. And I think when you look at the strides they made, there were strides. They've improved. There's no doubt about it. But I also think when you look at the league they play in, everything else that comes along with that in the Big 12, I mean, how many guys were you watching that are defensively at the combine from the Big 12? Is there a huge group of guys?
I made this point over the
Big
weekend.
12, with the Big 12, mostly year in, year out, isn't producing as much defensive talent. Surely it's not the SEC or Big 10, but not even as much as the ACC. You know, not even as much as the Pac-12 in years back when the Pac-12 existed. So, and it's not to take away from what their turnaround was, but when you look at doing that at an NFL franchise, it's entirely different. And there's so many different things that play a role in that, where, you know, the coach in college football has autonomy over the program. He has a lot more he can do, say, in, you know, as far as creating change. You can look at an organization like the New York Jets, and you've touched on this as much as anyone, LaVar. If there's dysfunction, it doesn't matter who the coach is, who the quarterback is, all the players in the roster. You're not going to be able to overcome that because there's going to be adversity. And when there's adversity, if you've got an owner who doesn't know how to handle that, who doesn't know how to stay the course, stay through the plan, handle the criticism, handle the adversity, they're going to make decisions and changes that ultimately impact that player or that impact that coach. And that's one of the biggest differences between how NFL teams are operated versus college football programs. That seems, for the most part, to kind of steady the course. Now, do they go through their downtrodden years, et cetera? Maybe they've got a bad IAD. Maybe they've got a bad coach. Of course. But for the most part, the Blue Bloods, they tend to figure it out. And you could make the case that there's Blue Blood organizations in the NFL that tend to figure it out. They tend to win more than others, right? I mean, we look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've only had less than a handful of coaches in the past how many years. And you sit there and go, well, yeah, some would say they have good ownership. Some, maybe are questioning some of that now. But, either way, Pittsburgh's going to be a competitive team. Like, they're going to be in the mix for a playoff spot. They'll be in the mix for the AFC North. That's just how this kind of works. Some of these organizations that have struggled of late, it's in part because of some of the decisions they've made. Now, again, going back to the Raiders, new situation. Tom Brady's taking a much more active approach. You have a new head coach, Pete Carroll. He's got a track record of success. Spydeck and Tom Brady are very close, so you've got a good working relationship there in the front office. All those things would point you to think, whatever decisions they're going to make, they're going to make to try to build this thing. But you also have to be careful to think that they're going to figure it out in year one. And it's going to take off right away. I mean, they have money to spend, but they got to spend it well.
That's why I look at that as the landing spot, that if it's about ownership, it's about belief in the player and giving him an opportunity and putting him in the best position to succeed. He's got that pre-existing relationship with Brady. Like him and Tom Brady know each other. He's been a mentor. He talked about it in Indianapolis over the weekend. Like, if you were Shadour Sanders and you're going to end up in a spot, the Raiders just makes a lot of sense. And because it feels like Tom Brady, knowing him the way that he knows him and mentoring him and going through the process with him, he's going to give him that time to try and work through those struggles and work through whatever those growing pains are. That's why I'm looking. I don't know if it's
could that be a drawback though, fellas? Like, just as much as that could be a positive and a bonus for both the Raiders and Tom Brady and for Shadour Sanders, could that be a possible drawback?
I'd rather have that than not have that.
Yeah, see, I've worked with family before. I've worked with close people and have tried to do business with close people, and it could go either way. It could go in different directions. And the one thing that I will say, it is more difficult to be in situations where you have to do the right thing and make the right decision when it's people that love and care about one another. If it's just business, there's nothing really personal. You can always stand on the fact that you say it's just business, it's nothing personal. But when you do that with people that you care about, like he's worked with Shedeur, he's known Shedeur. They were at Under Armour together too. I've seen it. Shedeur grew up around all of that. Like, grew up around any and everyone. Cam Newton, Tom Brady. He grew up around anybody and everybody that was Under Armour because his dad was became one of the pillars of the company. And so, to me, somebody since they were that as little as Shedeur and Shiloh and those guys were, and Bossy, when they were coming to the games and coming around the facility all the time, you develop a different type of relationship with them. And keep in mind, you don't want to jack up your relationship with Prime either. I just wonder if that's could there be drawbacks?